Okay. Well, hello everyone. My name is Patrick Walther. It is an absolute pleasure having you today on this interesting panel discussion. So just a couple of housekeeping rules before we get started. If you have any questions, there's a chat box at the bottom where it says chat. So please just type in your questions and we go from there. And also the video will be accessible to rewatch after the conference. So who am I? Well, I am the host today on today's session. I'm born and raised in Switzerland, spent all of my time at my two uncles on the farm. I did a bachelor's in agronomy and ecology and built a business where we sold pasture-raised goose meat to the two biggest supermarket chains. And then I came to Canada, did my master's at the University of Manitoba in on-farm research. And at that time, I really realized the importance of great advisors on multifaceted and complex farming operations, such as Terry's or Tyler's. I realized personally that farming is too broad to be champion in every aspect of it. And so therefore, I'm really excited about the conversation today. Today, I am the COO and co-founder of AGvisorPRO. AGvisorPRO is a connectivity platform that connects question seekers with experts. These experts can be individual farmers such as Terry Aberhart, who is, by the way, on our platform, or independent experts such as Elaine Fraze, who is also part of FMC, or industry representatives from companies like MNP, which we have today as well with Scott Dickson. So it is an absolute pleasure for me to host this session today because I feel really honored to be chosen to host this. I will look forward to hear three different perspectives on how to leverage and use expertise in a modern farming operation. So the topic for today's session is filling the gap through mentorship and peer advisory. In an increasingly complex agricultural environment, farmers are constantly faced with new challenges and opportunities, requiring tough decisions while striving to reach personal and professional farming goals. Successful farmers are not afraid to reach out for help to guide their decision-making from those with greater experience and perhaps some lessons learned along the way. In this discussion panel, we will explore two avenues Canada's farmers are using to support getting outside help to maintain excellence. On one side, the mentorship, on the other side, peer advisory groups. And I'm going to introduce first only two panelists of today's call, and then later on, I'm going to introduce Terry Aberhart as well. But in order to introduce Tyler Fewings and Scott Dickson, I need to talk about the Cattlemen's Young Leaders Program. It was established in 2010, so they just had their 20th anniversary this year. And it was done to support the next generation in leading the beef industry into the future. Tyler Fewings and Scott Dickson will discuss what drew them to the program, as well as the impact and value of their mentorship experience. So I'd like to introduce Tyler. Tyler and his wife, Amy, and their family make their home in Southwest Manitoba near the town of Pearson. There, alongside Tyler's family, they operate a mixed farm with a focus on the commercial cow-calf enterprise. Tyler is a graduate of the University of Saskatchewan College of Agriculture and Bioresources. After completing his post-secondary education, Tyler went on to work in a number of roles in agriculture before he and Amy decided to go back to the farm after being away for roughly 10 years. Tyler is also currently the watershed manager for the Lower Souris Watershed Committee in Southwest Saskatchewan. This has furthered his personal interest in land and water resource stewardship and conservation, principle that he works to implement at home, which makes sense because it's very important in cattle. So Tyler also recognizes the importance of good business and financial management as a key to unlocking efficiency, profitability, and ensuring the sustainability of the farm. Couldn't agree with it more. Investing in developing his knowledge base and skill set is what led him to take part in the Canadian Cattlemen's Association Young Leaders Program in 2018-2019, where he was paired with mentor Scott Dickson of MNP, which is a perfect segue to Scott. Scott is delivering services to approximately half of MNP's 15,000 clients in the beef, dairy, swine, and poultry sector. He is currently the Director of Livestock Services and Vice President of Hutterite Services for MNP. He's initially from Brandon, started working there for MNP, then moved out to Alberta, started an office here in Ag Knowledge. And MNP realized about 10 years ago that ag is so broad that their people need to be more specialized in specific sectors such as grain, beef, dairy, and that those advisors could not just be overall ag advisors. He then led internally more of the mentoring of the people inside of MNP to become the sector specialist, as opportunities and challenges are different for each. Since then, MNP has become the largest advisory firm in Western Canada, with a goal of becoming the same coast to coast as they have become a national firm. He's a city guy who came to love the ag sector. He loves that farmers place value on personal relationship and the family element that came with their businesses and the long-time legacy that most farmers aspire to. I really like that sentence. So Scott is a chartered accountant, and I'm very excited to have the two of them share their experience on how this Cattlemen's Young Leaders Association program went all about. So Tyler, I pass it first to you. First, maybe give me a bit of an idea on what that actually meant. How did you hear about the program, and what has it helped you?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Patrick. Yeah, I'll start with some background on myself. I'm born and raised here near Pearson, Manitoba. Grew up on a farm, and after high school, decided to go on into agriculture for my education and went to the University of Saskatchewan. I got a degree there in animal sciences and rangeland resources. And then worked in the ag industry for a number of years, traveled here and there, and it was in quite a few different locations across Western Canada. Just wasn't quite finding my fit, and always kind of felt like I'd like to be back home. So eventually, my wife and I decided that we'd give it a whirl and move back to the farm, which was a stretch. She's not from the area. She's from the coast out in BC. So we decided to give that a whirl and move back home. Prior to that, I had purchased some cattle that were there waiting for us, basically. And it wasn't a large enough enterprise to sustain our family. So I worked off farm once we got back as well. And I continue to do so, actually, as we kind of build the farming operation to this day. Yeah, so basically the farm sort of grew slowly on our part. My dad and brother farm with us as well. They're fairly established. My brother had been home a few years prior to myself coming back, so he was more established than myself. And we do farm together, share equipment, share labor, but at the same time we operate our own individual businesses. So as the farm sort of grew and my time commitment was drawing thin, and you can kind of get sucked into the day-to-day of putting in all the time and effort on labor, I began to think, you know what, I need to dive a little more into the operations behind the scenes and the office work that needs to get done to make this place sustainable and move it forward. So that's sort of what instigated my interest in the Cattlemen Young Leaders program. That's a program offered, as you mentioned, by the Canadian Cattlemen's Association, and I had looked into that program previously, although I didn't quite see a fit or perhaps why I would be super interested in joining it until, I don't know exactly, eventually a light switch went off, and I thought, you know what, this might be an opportunity to dive into some education around how this should work. The Cattlemen Young Leaders program just for a brief plug, is basically open to anyone in the livestock industry, not just producers, just anyone with an interest or an affiliation with the industry, that are between the ages of 18 and 35. It is a mentorship program, so you apply and become a part of the program, and get paired with a mentor. Yeah, so that was the big thing for me. I wanted to dive into, you know, business management, financial management. How do you get into the weeds of, you know, am I doing this the right way? What should I be doing better? How can we benchmark off of what other folks are doing, or have a better understanding of the business side of what we're off to here. So the program involved the selections process, where we were at the Canadian Beef Industry Conference. The year I was there was in London, Ontario, where coincidentally we had a chance to meet with Scott prior to the mentorship pairing, and a number of other folks in the industry. So it was a great opportunity, just being selected to go through the selections process. And from that, I was selected to become a part of the program, along with a number of other young producers and young folks across the country. So at that point, we get paired with a mentor, and are given a travel budget that allows us to either further our interest in the industry or meet with our mentor for mentorship purposes. It does depend. Some mentors are next door, and some are like Scott was. He's a couple provinces away from me, so we did manage to meet a few times and kind of dive into some of that stuff and make the best of it, I guess. So it was a great program, and that's sort of what brought me into it. And to this day, I guess I try to continue keeping my nose in the books, I guess I'll say, so that we aren't you know, burying ourselves in labor and work, which is easy to do, and keep on top of looking forward and looking at the big picture when it comes to the farm business. So.
Very cool. I'll hand this over to Scott. So obviously you were one of the mentors of Tyler, and you know, the one thing he just shared now is like getting sucked into the day-to-day business. Tell me a little bit about how do you see it as a mentor coming from the outside on how you can be helpful, and what made you choose to be part of the Cattlemen's Association Young Leaders Program?
Super, thanks, Patrick. Yes, I think I was there at the beginning. Jill Harvey, actually, I think, was very involved with the program and starting it up. So Jill and I got to know each other, and she talked me into supporting the program through MNP as one of the original founding partners with it. So our clients had told us over the years, as we looked to sponsor in agriculture, that you'd never go wrong sponsoring the youth element. So that's what led us down towards the Cattlemen's Young Leaders group, and I myself got to be involved over the last 10 years as a mentor a couple of times, but also in the selection panel and just the chat rooms. As I said, trying to shut me up sometimes is a bit of a challenge. So shutting me up so that they could talk, as Tyler can attribute to, is sometimes hard. But no, I had the opportunity with a couple of mentorships. I believe in it. I do it inside my own organization. And as I said, when I got a chance to meet with Tyler and got put forward as a mentor for him, the fact I came from Manitoba was always sort of nice. I have a place in my heart for all the Manitoba people. So being from Red Deer now, I still get back there in the summer. So I actually had a chance before May long weekend. I've got a cottage in Manitoba. It gave me the chance to go back and see Tyler and Amy's farm, get a chance for on-farm visit. And then over the year that we were in the formal part of our mentor, we had a couple of opportunities to get together at various industry events that sort of allowed us to catch up and chat, and probably for me to meet some of Tyler's friends in industry contacts, and for me to introduce them to some of mine. We had the fortunate part that I know Tyler came to Red Deer host the Alberta Beef Industry Conference, and then the Canadian Beef Industry Conference were both, of course, in London the first year, and I think in Alberta the other two. So in my backyard in Red Deer, gave me an opportunity to have him up. I know he came into our office and met with a couple of our farm management consulting group people to walk them through. I think Tyler was a perfect example because for me, as an accountant, I don't have too many farmers really wanting to know more about the accounting. Usually it's just getting them to do anything with the accounting. So as I said, having him show an interest in what I do was flattering, to say the least. And I think he was the perfect example, because when we sat down and looked at his books the first time, you know, Tyler's comment is, I thought I had a better year than that, but if I look at the bottom line, it just doesn't show it. And he got to introduce to the wonders of the cash basis versus the accrual basis of accounting, because I think at the end of our meeting and day, I showed him he did have a good year. So it was a perfect example of what it is we try and show our clients and try and show farmers how, you know, cash is king, but it's easy to manipulate cash. And so we spent a fair amount of time trying to teach them the ins and outs of accrual accounting, which of course then had a better picture for him when we looked at his operations for the prior year and the year before that. I think that was the first step in the teaching process. So yeah, we've been very happy. We've had a number of our other folks involved through M&P with the CYL. And yeah, I think Tyler and I have carried on. It's a year and a half since I think I was at his farm, but longer than that. And we've managed to stay in touch. And I think that's been the part where we've had some interesting chats on big decisions he's faced, and then just keeping up with things in ag as they happened, and talking about COVID and talking about opportunities that are going around. And yeah, and as I said, I'm talking about Manitoba, Winnipeg winning the Grey Cup. That was probably one of the big things. So there you go.
Very cool. I mean, I'll have a question later on a bit more in terms of like, what is the relationship the two of you guys have right now? Because I think there's an interesting spin on that. But for now, I'd like to hear a little bit more from Tyler on how did that actually look like when you first met Scott? Like, how did that mentorship really drive you forward? Was it that you told him or shared what are some of the big challenges you're facing right now, and then Scott was able to help you with that? I mean, you guys just talked about the accrual accounting, and that you, Tyler, were very interested in the accounting side of things too. But just talk to me a little bit on what were some of the sorts of things that you took out of it and you felt like would drive you forward from a business standpoint of view?
Yeah, so I guess you can kind of look at mentorship in a couple of ways, and the fact that we got brought into this through sort of a formal mentorship program, it forced me to sit down and consider what the takeaways really needed to be on this. So that sort of helped us kick off the Cattlemen Young Leaders process. Once you're selected and you've narrowed down the mentor, they ask you to draw out a plan for your mentorship program. So over the next year, what it is you're going to tackle, and that did definitely help me sit down and reflect on what exactly do I need to get, dive into some resources a little bit to get even a little bit of a better understanding, so that I'm not, talking above my pay grade, and you get a plan put in place. So then that gets run by Scott, and Scott had a look through it and provided comments on how he thought we could tackle some of this stuff. And that was sort of the kickoff. So that there was sort of a formal structure behind that. That said, it was relatively, beyond that, the program, the Cattlemen Young Leaders program themselves, is sort of hands off. At that point, you're behind the wheel. And so Scott and I sat down and made contact, I guess, self-initiated was the plan, and sat down and kind of drew up a plan on how we'd like to proceed through the next year, and beyond. And so what we did was basically come up with roughly a monthly plan to touch base, whether it be, COVID's brought a lot of negativity around, but these Zoom calls and all the Microsoft Meet and all these things has really enabled a lot of video conferencing, which we didn't take full advantage of, and I sort of wish we should. We've done it a little bit lately, but we met where we didn't meet. We contacted one another on roughly a monthly basis. At the time, Scott had said, you know, what's a good idea would be to come up with 3 questions, or, you know, 3 burning questions or something you'd like to really tackle prior to those meetings. And yeah, and like you said, we just kind of catch up on what was going on, who was doing what, what's going on in the industry, you know, some of the hot topics of the day. And then we'd sort of dive into a bit of the financial management, business management, accounting, you name it, sort of stuff. And each one would somewhat build off the previous session, I guess. And then throughout that, we did have the opportunity, like Scott mentioned, to meet up in person. I did use the travel budget to attend the Alberta Beef Industry Conference out there, you know, in large part due to the fact that it was in Scott's backyard, and it gave us a chance to meet up afterwards and chat during the event. So tried to kind of take advantage of that travel budget and meet in person when we could. And then, yeah, just phone calls and meetings. And like Scott said as well, he was out to the farm and was able to sit down with us and sort of chat about how things worked, and even had Scott throw some corn bags into the planter for us while we were getting some seed in the ground. So it was a good experience, and it allowed for me to come up with questions and really kind of dive into it, because I guess that's sort of something, it's easy to say, oh, I need to figure this out, or that's something I'd like to dive into, but yeah, really, is it? I don't, you know, how do you really know much about it? So I was forced to kind of reflect on what we needed to do, and then sort of Scott, I'm sure at that point, could identify, you know, here's where we got to go with this, and we were able to kind of just follow that map and touch base throughout the year and work towards, you know, coming out the other end, you know, improved from where we started, I guess.
Scott, do you want to add something to this? Kind of how the experience looks on your end. Do you usually have a plan in mind? Where do you want to go with the conversation, or is it very much led to just what Tyler is asking and what the 3 questions of the day or of the month are?
As I said, I think it was designed to let Tyler drive it, although I'm sure that it went in different directions once we started to talk. I know that, you know, I got to treat it much like I do with a lot of clients, because the questions he had were the kinds that tend to be routine, about his own business. And we talked about financing, we talked about borrowing money, we talked about government programs. You know, we talked about succession planning. We had a whole bunch, probably, once again, not specific to him, but probably more in theory. And then in some cases, when it came into his specific operation, we could dive into a little bit more specifically. And the fact that we got together, as you say, probably 3 or 4 times over the last 1.5 to 2 years kind of thing, it gave us an opportunity to just catch up on industry things at industry events. But in most cases, as I said, I tried to force Tyler to drive the question so that he could get the most out of it from his perspective, so that he could, you know, get the things answered that he needed answered, if I could answer it. And if I couldn't, I could put him in touch with people that, is in my mind, were, you know, either inside my organization or people I'd come across that probably were outside my organization that he could go talk to. And that's one of the things I think the mentorship, it's more of the connection of all of the people, you know, not just the one person, you know. So I know that Tyler and I had more than one opportunity to introduce each other to each other's circle of contacts. And that is part, it's amazing how fast it grows, being involved with 10 years of the CYL. Theoretically, I've got 100 CYL people, and multiply that by whatever their sense of contacts have been. It's been, you know, truly rewarding for us to be involved, and our folks that have been involved in the program. And so, yeah, it's rewarding for us to do it as well. But as I said, you try and let you know, yeah, I tried to let Tyler push the agenda and set the agenda, and it worked. As you said, it was always enough, and it wasn't boring accounting all the time. So it seemed to be okay.
Very cool. Okay, so I'm going to bring in Terry Aberhart any second here. But Tyler, one thing that comes to my mind, when you were preparing for the sessions, would you say, you know, you shared with us you felt like you were bogged down sometimes in the day-to-day business. Did you feel like just taking the time and actually thinking about what are some of my biggest problems that I'm facing right now on my farm, that even just that time really brought you forward and like gave you more clearance?
Yeah, I would say for sure. It did, like you said, it just gives you time to start thinking about the things you should be thinking about probably. I, even after a call with Scott, we discussed, he mentioned accrual accounting. It's a relatively basic principle, but it applied in the situation and it made complete sense. And after the fact, I remember diving into some podcasts and different resources about it and just trying to get a better understanding of, the benefits, and that's one topic, but there was a number. And my wife was probably going crazy because when we tried to go anywhere in the car, I'd pull up a podcast about accounting or about something that she thought was quite boring, but yeah, it forced you into thinking about stuff and try to build your knowledge base on what it is that you're diving into, so that not only were you gaining some insight from Scott, but then you'd kind of go back and you'd reflect a bit more and you dive into some of the other experts that have stuff out there, webinars and even just the odd paper article or something that applied, and you'd sort of, you just read into it a bit more, try to educate yourself. So not only were you being mentored on the side, but it's probably fallen off a little more than it should have lately. But it really did kind of just drive an interest in me that was there for the whole course of that year in specific and beyond. But and to this day, I probably would still flip on a podcast that talks about accounting, even though most people would skip over it in a big hurry. So yeah.
Very cool. Okay. Scott and Tyler, thanks for sharing your guys' experience. As I said, there's really two parts to this conversation today. And in one way, it's mentorship. And on the other side, it's advisory groups, what Terry Aberhart has to share. And obviously, I know Terry personally quite well as well. I'm very excited to have him today on the panel. And Terry's passion for agriculture and entrepreneurial growth is quite a thing. I'm very humbled to know him. Terry farms 16,000 acres, I believe, in Saskatchewan. He's running Sure Growth Solutions, which is a agronomy and consulting firm. He's also part of Aberhart Ag Solution, where they're selling sulfur. And he's sometimes the host of Growing the Future podcast as well. Terry will share his experience in creating a peer advisory group for the farm. His farm decided to push the envelope for the farmer's long-term business strategy, stacking their team with experienced entrepreneurs, none of whom are farmers themselves. So I'm very curious to hear how that went. Terry also attends Strategic Coach by Dan Sullivan, another non-ag avenue that pushes his boundaries. And Terry, as I mentioned already, is part of AGvisorPRO too, which is cool. So if you have questions, you can always chat with him too. Terry, without further ado, I know you have a presentation lined up. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks for the gracious introduction. Excited to have the opportunity to, just share a little bit about our experience with setting up an advisory group for our business. And so I do have a little bit of presentation. I'm going to share my screen. And so the Growing the Future is kind of our tagline for the farm, and something that we focus on. And really, it's just about making things better for the future generations and always trying to improve. And one of the reasons why we've worked towards getting an advisory group to work with. And I always like to share a slide of my family, because at the end of the day, that's kind of what it all comes down to. And one of the things that we're always working towards doing better for. So I think for the purpose of the discussion today, as was discussed a bit with the earlier group here on mentorship, I really love this quote about tell me I forget, teach me and I remember, and involve me and I learn. So really, I think we always want to look to kind of work together with mentors and advisors in order to really learn and be involved in the process. And so for us, I think first we'll kind of look at what are the reasons why we feel there's value in an advisory board or panel for your business, and then kind of how it works or how we set it up. And so firstly, I think I really believe in doing what you love and loving what you do. And so it really comes down to what your unique abilities are. So we all have certain things that we're really passionate about. In a farm business, typically you're doing a little bit of everything, but you're probably, if you're anything like me, you're not really good at everything. You're probably really good at a few things. And so we always try to look at, really leveraging what your skills and passions are, and surrounding yourself or getting help or support in those areas that maybe you're not as passionate about. I probably won't. I do know accounting and finances are a very important part of the business, but I'm not passionate enough about it. I don't want to be in the car listening to those podcasts about accounting systems either. So, but definitely look to have those type of people on our team. And kind of our second rule is, if you surround yourself with amazing people, you can accomplish amazing things. So this is just an example of a photo of our team here at our annual strategy meeting last year. And typically we meet with our advisors before we kind of set the goals for our team. But again, it's really just about surrounding yourself with people with a diverse skill set and different experiences to help you move forward on your goals and what you want to do. And it really is about goal setting and knowing where you're going. I think, at times in the business, you need to pull yourself out of the day-to-day. One analogy that's used sometimes is as if you're cutting a path through the jungle, once in a while you might need to climb a tree and look at the horizon to make sure you're going in the right direction, right? And so really a lot of this is about pulling yourself out of the day-to-day, out of the weeds of working in the business and working on the business and helping decide where you're going. And so when you can have an advisory group, ideally that's had a lot of business experience and different experiences that you haven't had, it really helps guide the direction and maybe the things that you should focus on and work towards. So I kind of put this in here as a bit of a joke, but there's a few different kinds of way that we learn, and some do by reading and some by observation, and sometimes you have to pee on the electric fence for yourself. So ideally, working with great advisors or mentors is about not necessarily having to pee on the electric fence to learn, whether that's a good idea or not, but to learn from others' mistakes and hopefully, to learn faster and a little easier than the hard way. And I think a lot of it is about just, having that mentorship as was described. So I was kind of like this photo of, this is my son Holden, and we're gonna go snorkeling in the ocean here, but he's pretty freaked out about getting in the water, something he hasn't done before, right? So a lot of what we do with the value of having an advisory is sometimes to help give you the confidence to do something that you want to do, and there's probably benefit and excitement around it, but you're a little bit scared to take that leap forward. And so really a big part of it is the mentorship, the coaching, the guidance to achieve something new, or to have that courage to step out and achieve that goal that you're working towards. And sometimes it's as simple as, things just don't go so well. Sometimes you get stuck in the mud. Sometimes there's events that happen in your business that can be really stressful, and there's a lot of emotion involved in, obviously, if it's a farm business and a family business, it can get pretty stressful when things don't go right. So sometimes what we need to lead on the advisory panel is, when you get stuck in the mud and you need to get some advice on how to move forward And it can really, really, again, just remove a lot of the stress and anxiety around decision making, especially when those decisions maybe are tough or not easy. Can just help gain a lot of clarity to help you move forward. And another big thing that we've really seen a huge value in working with the advisory is on succession. What we've kind of learned is succession is not just sitting down one time and making a plan and then you figured it out and it's done. It's kind of an evolving process that happens every year, and there's certain pieces that move back and forth. But one of the probably the most valuable things I find in working with an advisory team or board is just having that second opinion, that third party opinion that's not family necessarily or not involved the day-to-day. So especially if there may be some disagreement or we're not aligned, maybe within your family or between your father and yourself or whoever it may be, having that board of people around you that you really trust and knows your business and you have a lot of respect for can really help make some of those decisions or help guide you through that. Helps you see the blind spots, again, that you may have due to emotion or other areas of passion that you have towards the work that you're doing. And so we've had a lot of different cases over the years where this guidance has just helped us make decisions, whether it's about life insurance or structure or transition of roles or what we need to be doing. And at times, you know, you may get called out. I've been called out on things that I've been doing or working towards, and or vice versa, other people within your group. So it's been a lot of value in that. And again, I think the biggest value is just to have the confidence and remove some of the stress and emotion out of decision making and where you're going. And so ultimately, you know, just maybe a few comments or notes about setting up an advisory board or panel or group. This is something that we thought about for quite a while before we moved forward with doing that. And of course, we weren't really sure exactly how to set it up or how it would work. And so initially, we actually worked with another grower or farmer, Christian Hebert, who had done something similar to help guide us. But essentially, what we did is just went out and we asked people that we worked with, that we were very close to see if they were interested in being on an advisory team for us. And I think generally speaking, you will find that most people are very willing or interested in helping you. I think in business, you know, there's probably some things to be learned by the people that are participating in supporting you, even though they have usually a lot more experience and depth of knowledge than you do. But I think most people do really enjoy seeing others be successful and sharing their knowledge. And so it was a lot easier to set that up than I thought. And we usually try to get together in person once a year for kind of a formal annual review where we look at all the different areas of the business. We typically go through our financials in a fair bit of detail. And then we look at all the different areas of operations, production, succession, HR, strategy, and wherever we may may be going. So that's kind of how we have our structure set up. So we do like to meet formally once a year, face to face. And then usually we have an update every quarter or so, just a quick call or discussion about where we're at. And if there's some kind of major event, that's what we do. And we use the yearly strategy session. You can see in the bottom of this photo here, just where we set some of our goals and look at the dangers, opportunities, and strengths, and just kind of identify the things that we need to work on moving forward through the year. And so this is a picture from a few years ago of the board that we have for the farm. So as mentioned, we have tried to find people that have necessarily are not farming, but understand farming, to try to get a different perspective or outside view in what we're doing. And so Rob Syke, founder of AgriTrend initially, and now AGvisorPRO, has been a long time friend and advisor to us in the consulting business as well as the farm. So he was kind of my first official member of the advisory committee, and really I kind of had the inspiration of setting this up from Rob setting up his own formal advisory board at AgriTrend with some pretty amazing people, and I just seen the value that had and wanted to replicate a small portion of that. We also have Rick Pattison from Pattison Liquid Systems, been a great advisor. He also grew up on the farm and really understands farming, but has been in the retail, chemical, and manufacturing business. Craig Senchuk, as well, real depth of banking experience and finance, ran Adam Jed as well as a couple other companies. He's been on our panel for quite a while. Jorg Zimmerman, chair of FMC Canada, was our consulting CFO, and is now, still on our board as an advisor. Has a lot of depth of financial planning and business planning for farms. And then at this time as well, we did have Bryce Field in this photo here, as well as my mom and dad and my wife and I. So Bryce, he is kind of someone locally that I knew was really close with. He actually does farm as well, but ran a construction company that was quite successful, doing a lot of work with the mines here. And so we wanted to have that different experience of working in a higher safety environment and the construction, learn what we could from his construction experience there, building that company with the mine. So that's kind of the panel that we've assembled. And so essentially you also have to look at, how would the group be compensated? And so that's going to depend on who you have on the team and what kind of structure you have and how much they need to put into it. But ideally, we've talked to all the members of the board, and we've kind of asked them how they'd like to be compensated. And I don't know if there's any set rule or structure of how that has to work. For some people, even like Rob, he gets a lot of value and experience from just kind of seeing the inside of a farm operation, and the challenges that we may face. So there's lots to be learned both ways. But again, when you're looking to set something up, I think you just look at the people or the skill sets that you want to bring in, and then decide how you want it to do it together. So initially, when we first started, we set up a meeting with the group initially and said we just want to get everybody together and figure out if this could work. And then as a group, we kind of decided how we wanted to run it and manage it. So that's essentially what we did. So there's a lot of different ways you could set up a structure like this, but for the most part, I would suggest don't overthink it. Just jump in and see how it goes and decide how to evolve it from there. So another thing just to touch on, it's a little bit different subject, but along the same lines, is this is just a photo of a peer group that we're in. So Rob also runs a peer group called the Power Farm Group. There's two groups now. We were part of one of the first groups. So I think we've been running this now, or part of this, for 7, 8, 9 years. We're in a group with about 10 other progressive farms across Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and same, very, very similar thing. We get together a few different times a year and just look at all the different challenges and opportunities, how we can learn from each other. And in a way, it is a bit of advisory as well. And so once this group spends more time with each other. We've all become quite intimate, sharing financials, sharing other struggles and issues within the business. And it's just been a huge learning opportunity and just a lot to gain from that. So very similar to having an advisory group, peer group can kind of provide some of the same things. And really one of the other important things is that both these groups or scenarios really help hold you accountable. So when you set your plans and set your goals and what you want to work towards, now you have some commitments or expectations to meet up to, hopefully, if things go well. So that's some of the experience there. And I guess, yeah, for us to really look at, you know, I really like this quote as well: the best way to predict your future is to create it. And so really what we're looking to do is leverage the talents and experience of those around us that we know to help us get to our goals and build what we want to build moving forward. So that's kind of the end of my little presentation or discussion on using an advisory group or board or panel for your business.
Very cool. Thank you, Terry. I mean, fascinating. We've talked about this personally already a couple of times. The one question I have, you said, you know, you meet the board once a year. You have quarterly updates, kind of thing. Do you include your employees as well, or is that just the higher management level? First question, and then the second part of that would be, you know, do you guys write it down and really set yourself those goals, and then on a quarter you basically talk about those things, what you achieved, what you didn't achieve, why you didn't achieve it, etc. Like, talk to me on how it actually looks in practice, that you guys hold yourself accountable for, because I think that's quite an important piece of it.
Yeah, there was a lot all intertwined in that question. So essentially what we're doing right now is we do have basically an advisor meeting before we have our strategic meeting with our team. So the advisory group meeting is really just with the leadership team of the business. And there we first run through where we're at with, you know, kind of our financials and our goals, and kind of set the big strategy where we want to go and what we need to do. And then as well talk about things like succession and stuff like that, which may not be, some of those subjects aren't necessarily something that your day-to-day team is involved with or need to know, right? So that's kind of how we do that there. And then we take that kind of direction and focus and have a planning meeting out with our broader team and how here's where we want to go, here's what we need to focus on, and here's the feedback from our advisory, and how do we, you know, execute on our goals. And so we do set goals that we work towards. We do write them down. I try to, you know, document presentations and a summary of that. We don't always execute on all of our goals as clearly and as accurately as we would like at times, but we are continuing to work towards, you know, kind of clarifying those goals and having them measurable and seeing how we did against them. So yeah, and then typically just really due to trying to be respectful for everyone's time. We know that time is one of everyone's biggest challenges these days. We would love to get together more often with everybody, but that's why we look at getting together once a year, formally in person if possible. And then a lot of times we'll have maybe one of our advisory members sit in on our team meetings, or maybe help facilitate that, or run it. Usually at the advisory meeting, we never really had an appointed facilitator, so to speak, but we've got a group of pretty strong professionals. It's usually one person kind of leads us and keeps us on track. But yeah, that's kind of how we set that up and work with our advisory group and our team in that manner.
Very cool. Okay, I'm gonna ask a question that all of you can answer. What were some of the examples you guys ran into where, you know, maybe the mentor has completely shifted you into a different direction, and it was really this light bulb moment where you realize, oh yeah, actually that may make sense to go in a different direction. Scott, maybe also from your side of things, you know, what were some of the mentoring that you've really felt like, hey, you just brought this operation to the next level, or were able to talk into? I'll open up the floor for whoever wants to go first.
Well, I'll start with one, give the other guys some time to think maybe, but yeah, there was one example that there's been lots of different ones, but there was a time a couple years ago where we had my wife and I, my father and mother are all shareholders of the farm business, and so there was a scenario where my dad was pretty nervous about what would happen if something were to happen to both him and I, and my mother and my wife were left kind of holding the cards, so to speak. And don't get me wrong, my wife and my mother get along quite well, but when it comes to mother-in-laws and all that stuff in business, can get interesting. And my mom isn't really, you know, actively involved in the day-to-day of the business. So the concern was if something were to happen to both of us, my mom would be holding a large majority of the farm shares, and then how did her and Lachelle figure out, you know, what to do with the company kind of thing. And it was fairly sensitive because it could have come out as seeming like it was something, you know, mistrusting our ability, or Lachelle's ability to run the farm or the business, but it was really just worried about, you know, mom or his wife, you know, having to make these decisions on her own. And so it was a fairly sensitive subject, and we tabled it to talk about it in the farm advisory group, just to have a safe place where emotions didn't get involved in. And it seemed like a really big issue. And when it came up and we talked about it, it was fairly quickly, it was actually Craig Senchuk, you know, said, well, this is, you know, you can probably solve this fairly easily with some life insurance on myself, enough to cover out some of the additional shares that mom would have at the time. And then essentially Lachelle would have full ownership of the business and could decide, you know, what she would do with it. And mom would be taken care of, and she would be secure. And so there was really actually, and that's actually what we did. It was a fairly simple solution to something that could be quite problematic if we hadn't discussed it and made a plan to execute that.
Patrick, maybe I'll jump in on part of it as well. And I think back to Terry's comments, probably the most movement I've seen in the last year has been around succession planning. It's always a tough one. It's an ongoing thing. I like Terry's analogy when he made his comments. It's been a frustration for accountants, lawyers, and bankers and financial advisors to get the ball moving, because everybody points to us that we need to help out, but you have to have a willing participant to help out. And in a lot of cases, that's been the challenge of my observation always been, if you don't have all the answers, you don't start. And unfortunately, you'll never have all the answers. And that's the part that makes it a difficult process. But unfortunately or fortunately with COVID, I've had a whole bunch of better uptake of seeds that I planted 5 years ago with some people my age, being the mentor age or the old guy's age, where all of a sudden I've got clients that I'm reaching out now that are actually phoning me back and saying, yeah, we got to get started, because I don't know if they're looking at their own mortality, or the times and places that we're in has pushed the needle a little bit, but I'm finding that there's a better uptake in that process. The other thing that's been interesting, and I think we'll go back to Tyler mentioned it about, Zoom calls and team meetings and whatever. It's changed our business so much because it's such a personal thing. You don't know who is concerned and who is not. From our people to our clients, we don't know which side of the ledger they're on. So you have to be very, very cautious of how you approach people. But the one thing that's been interesting is Teams and Zoom have allowed and even CRA moving to auto signatures. I mean, people could care less. My mom and dad, as an example, right till last year, oh no, we'd have to come in and sign our tax returns. Last year is like, no way we're coming into your office to sign our tax returns. Forget it, it's not happening. So the ability of CRA to move forward, auto signatures, getting what we call the compliance things out of the way, and then using face-to-face or Zoom as a way to be able to go through the harder conversation. And I don't think things like succession, in a perfect world, that's you got to be able there to hear the heartbeat of the room if you're going to do a good job. So, but it's taking also the onus of driving in the ag world, like actually physically driving places. And I think that's the one that's going to put hours and hours and hours back into the next generation's lives of being, more at home, more involved in the family, more involved in the ability to, watch cattle sales electronically and be able to do work and attend, things that help them run their business electronically. So some positives that I'm seeing come out of it. And as you say, from the mentorship standpoint, the ability to say, Tyler and I still aren't using this medium, but we started to. And as we said, we never would have thought of it a year and a half ago. It existed. We didn't use it. We used the face-to-face. So some of the positives that have come out of it, and we've used it a little bit more in the last 6 months because we've had to, and I think we'll use it going forward. And so just my observations of some of the things that are coming out of it.
Yeah, I don't have a huge amount to add, and I don't have a great story of an example where there's been a major change. There's been a number of just small adaptations or suggestions that have been adopted to kind of move things forward. And I think maybe the biggest change or the biggest outcome for me is that we've just pushed the process, and the mentorship itself has been the outcome, like being able to rely on somebody to dive into those things and really push yourself forward and try to work towards, improving, whether it be your record keeping or your finances or your you name it, right? So that whole thing is sort of just put me on a trajectory, I guess, pushed the business in a certain direction, and that is definitely moving in a better direction than where it started out, where it was kind of just at a standstill or sort of floundering, I guess, perhaps. So I think just taking the leap on the mentorship, and then through that the networks and the interests grow, and that's really been the good outcome from the whole process.
Cool. Tyler, since you did the CYL program, have you sought more additional mentors since then? And maybe I'll pass that to Terry afterwards too. Are you changing your board? Is that an ever evolving strategy? How does that look like?
It's nothing exactly formal, like coming from that background of where it's like a very formal program that starts it out. So nothing is as formal as Scott's and I's mentorship relationship has come out of it. But that said, that formal component is done. Like Scott and I touch base now just because we've made that contact and we're familiar and we understand and we know that we have, there's a role there to play. And so we further that relationship. My network through that program has grown quite a lot. Thanks in part to Scott, but in part just to knowing and meeting other participants and people in the industry, familiarizing yourself with who does what and what they do well. And so, although there's no necessarily a formal mentor, like the ability to flip through your phone and pick up or send an email to the person that you think could answer that question is invaluable, and that has grown immensely for me.
Yeah, I kind of agree with those comments as well. I mean, selfishly for me, I try to pick everybody's brain as much as I'm allowed to, or I can, on most different subjects if possible. But yeah, as far as the board goes, or sometimes we don't always call it a board because we don't have a formal, like a formal board would be where we're offering shares or whatever it may be. But I think it will evolve over time depending on what you're looking for and what you need, and maybe someone just gets tired of giving you advice. You probably will find if you have a group that's giving you really good advice and you're not following it, they probably won't be willing to participate for very long. But we've had a little bit of change in our group, and I anticipate we will, going forward, just based on maybe people's time commitment getting busy, and or just looking to bring in another fresh perspective or a different viewpoint. So as I mentioned, we worked quite a bit with Christian Hebert initially to help set it up, and then once we had it set up, we just felt that for various different reasons, Christian maybe wasn't necessarily the right person to have on the panel for us longer term, but was really valuable in helping us set it up. So yeah, I think it will change and evolve over time based on what your needs are.
Sorry, I almost forgot to come off mute. Classic. Scott, maybe talk to me a little bit. Obviously, within the CYL program, I assume that you gave your advice out for free. However, you're also in the business of advisory service within MNP. How does that relationship kind of look like between you and Tyler right now?
Well, I've actually badgered him a few times on how I thought he could actually come be my client, but as we said, that's been an informal thing and never an expectation, and a little bit of a joke in some cases. It's been funny though. For example, we ran a small, believe it or not, we were trying to do agri-stability. Of course, everybody was talking about it as the program that the feds, insist is the only way to go forward to help ag through COVID, et cetera, et cetera. So we tried to work with our beef producers in particular, who, without picking too badly on them, traditionally are challenged when it comes to record keeping at the best of times. So this summer we ran just a bit of a opportunity to teach our clients how to do, calving reports. In the grain world, we do fall production reports. Most of, the grain guys are totally used to that, and doing a fall production through crop insurance, et cetera, et cetera. But we're trying to work with the beef guys to talk about, boy, would you actually, how hard it would be to actually count the number of calves you had, and oh yeah, tell me how many are male and how many are female, and yeah, because we need those things, and how many died, which I know you hate to admit, but yes, they do die. So, so part of working with Tyler this summer was just inviting him to our panel, even though he's not a client, but we tried to go back, given his cattle, saying, I know he was in agri-stability, I know he was there, and we talk about this whole thing of this, the love-hate relationship with agri-stability with farmers, and they more hate it than love it. But at the end of the day, getting the opportunity to do better record keeping to allow the cost of it, and probably better understand the program through, from the producer's standpoint of understanding how the program works, how it pays out, and allowing them that opportunity. They can actually save money if they do it properly and record things when they happen, as opposed to trying to figure them out 18 months later. So as we said, I think working with our advisory, we've worked with, as I said, I don't think any way, shape, or form that was ever an expectation, but at the end of the day, I think at the end of the day, you like being able to have Tyler say good things about us, because, the foundation MNP started right in Tyler's backyard, so saying good things about MNP as even part of my marketing extension back into my old neighborhood, that's never a bad thing.
Yeah. So let's move maybe a bit more to the more challenging question around this topic in terms of advisors and mentors. Like, maybe there's farmers out there who are slightly too proud to reach out and have mentors guiding them and tell them what they maybe should change. And some may think it's a sign of weakness to reach out for help as well. Like, what is your guys' thoughts on this?
I'd say that that could be something definitely that holds a lot of people back, and I don't know if it really played a role in my hesitation or not. When I think about it, perhaps it did. But you have to recognize that there's no way you can know everything. There's no way that you can be the best at everything, and there's no way that you can achieve everything that's possible on your own. You're going to rely on assistance and help somewhere. So you might as well open the door, and whether that's through peer groups or mentorship or having an advisory committee, I think just driving that forward and reaching out to people and getting knowledge, it just makes it so much easier, and it's so much more accessible. And like Terry said, he doesn't want to sit down and listen to the accounting podcast, but he has a reliable source for useful information, and it just makes things happen quicker. It makes things more understandable. So you know what, at the end of the day, you put all that to work for yourself, and you come out on the other end bigger and better than you probably could have done on your own, which is probably something to be more proud of than letting your pride hold you back in the first place.
Yeah, I think as well. I mean, that is something that we do see a fair bit in the ag industry and within our culture. We come from kind of a rugged individualism culture where you did everything yourself, right? And my dad would always say, when he was growing up on the farm, basically if you could plow the most in the day or work the hardest, that's kind of how you got ahead, right? And that's, I think, where that rugged individualism comes in, but it's not that way anymore. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of times people don't seek advisors because of that mindset, or feeling, like that's a sign of weakness or whatnot. But I really look at it the opposite way. I think, some of the most intelligent people I know actively seek advisors and advice, and the more it seems, the more people reach out for knowledge. And I kind of use the analogy of a winning sports team or high performance athlete. Like, you don't get to the championship cup without any coaches, right? And advisors, and you're not going to get to the Olympic podium without a team of coaches and experts on your nutrition and your training and all this stuff. And so it's not easy. I shouldn't say it is easy being mentored and leveraging advisory boards if you're willing to be coached. And sometimes it's not easy to hear that maybe this idea that you have, that you're super passionate about and excited about, maybe it isn't an amazing idea, or maybe there's some risks involved with that you didn't think of, or you're not aware of. And so those experiences at first can be difficult, but if you've assembled the right mentors or advisors around you, you should be looking for people that are passionate about what you're doing, that have areas of expertise, and ultimately that you trust. And so when these people are giving you advice, their only motivation for that advice is for you to be successful. So it doesn't always necessarily mean that you have to follow it all, but if you're going to go against it or go hoe your own road, so to speak, you just have to make sure that you understand the risks and you're very confident, or reevaluate, maybe take a second look at, are you making the right decision?
And maybe to add to it, Patrick, the industry, and I'll pick on what we talked about, dad's or grandpa's generation was driven by that whole work ethic. You're absolutely right, that work harder and you'll do better. And I think our firm has worked towards that idea of connecting production and profitability, because all too often, ag is all about producing the most for the least. I mean, that's the goal. The challenge is when you do that, if I've worked absolutely as hard as I can, how can I not be profitable? And unfortunately, we've tried for a lot of years to demonstrate that. I'll pick on the poor hog guys at certain times, that when you're losing 20 bucks a pig and you produce 3 more pigs per sow, guess what? You just lost 60 bucks more. To them, that just goes crazy, because as they say, most guys will go back, are you growing the most profitable rotation in your crops? Are you selling your cattle at the right time? And the answer in my beef world, guys, is, why did you choose the background? Because I had feed. Not because I was going to make more money. And actually, I might give away money if I chose to feed them out for another 3 months. So that's the part that we've worked with, is this idea of challenging the ability of profitability. When the vet comes by and says, if you do this, you'll make 15% more. Did you check? Did you check into it to see it? I mean, not picking on vets or feed or anything else, but you go back to that whole idea of challenging, the old definition of sanity, doing the same thing over and over and over and over and expecting different results. And that's probably the challenge, where we go back to seeing the next group of reaching out and finding different ways to do things to see if it does in fact change the bottom line, at least where we're involved.
Very interesting. I mean, Terry, by the way, I absolutely love the analogy to, professional athletes and having coaches around them, that they can't do it themselves. And kind of like tying into what Scott said now is the question, how many times would you say you're facing some backlash that people don't want to get mentored, or usually when they reach out to you, are they at a point where they really like seek for help and are open to your suggestions? Not sure if that make any sense as a question, but Scott, that was more for you, kind of like, do you feel you get challenged a lot about that, or is that something you don't have on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, Patrick, sorry about that. Absolutely. I think we've got all kinds of clients, that some that are open, some that are not. I think when we look at, when we started going down this road of ag advisory 20 years ago at MNT, and I hate to admit I've been there that long, but you went back, I remember there was a Western producer article that split almost 50-50, the farmers who were entrepreneurial to the farmers that were lifestyle. I think it was 51-49. And at the end of the day, when we looked at who we wanted to work with, well, we wanted the entrepreneurial. And one of the questions they asked to see if you were entrepreneurial is, do the things you do and change your operation, change your results, or are you a victim of circumstances? And that was probably one of the most defining things that we used when we tried to figure out. Now, we have clients on both sides of the ledger, the ones that want, do my tax returns and do my GST, and that's all I want you to do, and keep it as cheap as possible. And then you have the other ones that want more like Terry's idea of saying, help us manage our business, be part of our business, understand and involve, we'll gladly pay you to be involved, give us some advice, understand our business and our industry, and see if there are things that when you are the outsider looking in, not driven by the passion that Terry talks about, absolutely, it sometimes, causes you to be blinded by the light in some cases. Hopefully that's the role that we tend to be a little bit independent. But by the same token, those are the clients we want to work with a lot, because as I said, I think at the end of the day, they value our input. Work with people that value your option. They're also more likely to pay you for it than the ones that don't value your advice. And so at the end of the day, tend to not really want to pay for it. So there's my business in a nutshell.
Cool. Terry and Tyler, I mean, this has been a great conversation so far. And, I would say many would consider having an advisory board or a mentor is a top management function. but I know you guys are both very entrepreneurial spirit and are on the lookout for new opportunities to gain that competitive edge. Talk to me a little bit of what's on the horizon for you guys. Terry, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in. Just had to hit the mute button, so I'm not talking with no sounds here. Diving into the whole topic when we were going through the mentorship program, something that really intrigued me was just having a peer network or peer groups that meet and discuss the challenges that they face individually. And I've come across a number of them from different organizations in different places. And I'm nowhere near selecting or moving into that, but I do think that would be a direction I'd be interested in pursuing. I just think that whether it be a group of farmers who are intimately familiar with the day-to-days and how it all works, or a group of people who are completely unrelated and bring a fresh perspective, I can see huge value in both, and I don't know what would be the best for me at this point, but that's something I've been tossing around, and at the end of the day, it's a matter of making it a priority and fitting it in. And I haven't just got to that point yet, but that's definitely something I'm interested in. And then diving into some of the numbers and a bit more, an organization called Ranching for Profit out of the States is something I've also had my eye on for a long time. And it seems fairly elementary, the stuff they touch on, but it's really clear and makes a lot of sense, and they dive into ratios, and through that there is also sort of that peer networking opportunity at the end for fellow graduates of their school. So those are a couple of things I've been tossing around. Again, not moved into that at this point in time, just too many other obligations on the family end of things, and with work. That's maybe something I could touch on, is working off the farm. Sort of poses a bit of a challenge in itself, just to time constraint, and there's other things going on. And at the same time, though, it's almost like a mentorship or a peer advisory group in its own, on its own. That you're dealing with other matters that you can relate back home. You can relate with, take home, and understand a little differently. You're meeting with groups of people who are completely unrelated to your business at home, but you bring back some of that knowledge and some of that information you've gleaned from them. So just working off the farm has been hugely valuable, I think, for me. That said, it also is a challenge, and if someone's going to really hammer down on their farming operation, I think you'd have to go one way or the other. So there's always that consideration in my mind as well. But to this point, my board of directors at work has been really flexible and really understanding of the challenges that are being faced. So they're really willing to work with me as well. And working with a board of directors on a nonprofit side of things, like I said, it brings you a whole fresh perspective that you can take home. So yeah, more of the same, I guess, and just trying to go bigger and better and continue to move forward. Then that's the plan.
Yeah, similar to Tyler's comments, I guess, we want to continue to always move forward and learn and grow, and so we don't have any huge plans to revolutionize how we're working with advisors or with our advisory group, but we have seen the incredible value and benefit of having the right people to work with in your business, and that's not just the advisory group that we have. It's also is our accountant and our lawyer and our banker and working all together. And so I think that a lot of it for us is just, there's definitely areas of opportunities that maybe we haven't always thought of or didn't even realize we were there, that get uncovered through these processes, and just gives you the confidence to do things that maybe normally you wouldn't without that, or just might probably one of the biggest benefits is just helps you sleep at night, to be honest. I mean, there, like, running a business is tough. There's a lot of challenges, especially in agriculture today. And that's just the business side of it, let alone the HR and the family and succession and all these other things. And so it's hard to know whether you're making the right decision, even if you have a lot of information and you've worked hard to do your due diligence. And you may you may still make the wrong decision, even with a lot of great advice. But one thing that I always feel is when you get these people, you know, in a room together with your leadership team and people that you intimately know and trust and really value their experience, and you make a decision together, there's not a whole lot of second guessing that, you know, and there is a realization that it may still be the wrong decision when you look back with your 2020 vision, because it's always really accurate when you look back. But the reality is it just gives us a lot of confidence to do what we want to do, and sometimes gives us the encouragement to look at other areas of opportunity that maybe we haven't seen and identify some of those blind spots. So we're just going to continue to keep doing what we're doing, I guess.
Cool. Yeah, it's an interesting layer what you basically just described. Is kind of like that peace of mind that gives you this, if there's a second opinion or third opinion out there who looks at your business and really helps you to define, okay, what are some of the things that we need to achieve, and just that you can sleep at night. Thanks for sharing that. Scott, maybe I'll pick kind of on you too, in terms of like, how do you see the future? So you just said something very interesting beforehand. You said, 20 years ago, you remember that article where it said like 50% are farmers and 50% are entrepreneurs. Now fast forward into 2020, you just said that you guys are using more and more video capabilities to be on the farm without being on the farm, which is, by the way, what we're doing as well, without making a shameless plug. How do you see the future of advisory service? Do you think it will become the norm that growers are just having an advisory board or mentors that are always with the growers? How do you see that changing, and how the MNP will play in that role? It's a big question. I apologize.
That's okay. I guess one part is we see the opportunity for agriculture. Although that there was some interruptions through the feedlot or through the harvesting process in the livestock side, ag has done fairly well through COVID, and we look at the resiliency, the ability to change, and the simple concept of people got to eat. And I think that's where we go back. Unfortunately, I still believe in our own country, you still look back to the divide between urban and rural right now that's going on. And yet the opportunity, as we say, when we move towards being one of 6 countries that export food, and the fact that the number one thing out there now seems to be the things that we do right as our ag industry, and food safety and food, traceability, and all the things that maybe we didn't like doing all the way along, that this process has added to the value of the Canadian product as we go into the global markets that we depend on. So I think from our world, that lends itself well. There's going to be it's going to be a big part of Canada's landscape and our GDP and our global presence that we play. People need us, and they need to know, even in countries we didn't think it was an issue, it is an issue for food safety and that. So I think that bodes well for us. We look at the next generation of those people. That is exactly what Terry and Tyler talked about. They recognize what they can do with the time they've got, and they don't try and do it all. There was a time when the old adage of $1 saved is $1 earned, as opposed to let me do with my time the things that make me the most money, and let me pay somebody else to do the other things I don't have time for to get it right, rather than me dabble in it. So I think that's the opportunity for us is to be advisors going in, let us play the role we can play for you. The next generation is going to recognize what they do with their management time to make them the most money, and they're going to look to advisors in in all of the other parts of their business to say, do what you do best and let others do what they do best, and you're willing to buy those services because at the end of the day, they're worth way more in profit by hiring them out than they ever were trying to learn to do them yourself. And I think, as we move towards automation and all those other things that is coming in ag, we still struggle with labor. So I think all of those, it's going to be a big changing landscape. And I think that's where this next generation maybe will bridge that gap between profitability and production. Because as I said, I think that working the hardest, as much as it got us to where we are today, maybe isn't the only way to move forward with it.
Very cool. This is actually a perfect segue into the final thoughts on how I wanted to wrap up this session today. So we're coming on top of the hour, and for Tyler and then Terry, I'll just ask the question. Both of you, first in your introduction, have talked about sustainability and the sustainability of, the ecological side of things from a watershed, but then also on the social side of things of like, what do we do with the next generations? And last but not least, what Scott also just alluded to, like the economical side of things, so that you can actually make your business profitable. Tyler, to wrap this up, what makes you excited about having mentors on your farm, for the next generation? Like, just one final thought, why you think it's really important to have.
For me, I think it's just to ensure that everything's still there and keeps rolling for the next generation, whether they choose to be a part of the farm or not. I fully value having been raised in a farming community and on a farm, and the opportunity that provided me, and I just want that to be available if my kids or family, nieces, nephews, whoever it might be, wishes to take part and take advantage of that. It's a great place to live and grow up, and I do put a lot of value on that. And so recognizing that it's not only a lifestyle, and to make sure that it's there for them, you got to do some of the hard work that's involved to keep it rolling and stay on top of your game. So hopefully for our next generation, the three core components of sustainability will all be there, and they can jump right in and keep rolling with it.
Terry.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, between sustainability and consumer demands and all the new technology and evolutions in agriculture, it's incredibly hard to stay up with all the change. So unless you're like the Elon Musk of agriculture, you might need some good people around you to help keep up with all that change and stay ahead of the game. So, for me, I guess things that I think are kind of most important, kind of in summary, is, first you got to decide if you want to learn, if you want to grow, and you want to be mentored and coached. Because if you don't, then don't waste your time. But if you do, make sure you surround yourselves with some great advisors. Make sure they fit the core values of your business and the goals that you want to achieve. That's really important. But and also that you really do respect their opinions. So if you're not going to respect opinions that shared or brought to you, it's not going to have a lot of value. But that's one of the things that I think is the most value, is when you have those discrepancies or debates, when you have people that you share their values and you really respect what they say, you listen to it. And it's really important to have people that have different experiences or views and are willing to challenge you in a professional way, of course, but they're not scared to call you out on something if they believe there's a risk or you need to look at things a certain way. So anyways, there's a lot of value to be captured. And there's an incredible amount of change that we are going to face in the years to come. And So we need to do the things that we can to best prepare ourselves for that.
Thank you. I could keep going in this conversation, but unfortunately we have to wrap it up. So Terry, Scott, Tyler, I very much appreciate you guys coming in today, virtually, obviously, and we'll wish you the best of luck for your future. And I hope we get to meet one day in person as well. So catch you guys later. And thanks for Farm Management Canada for putting this together and allowing me to be the host today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.